Hello, welcome to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Fantastic Fiction is a monthly speculative fiction reading series held on the third Wednesday of every month, hosted by Ellen Datlow and me, Matthew Kressel. We spotlight well-known and up-and-coming science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors, and admission is always free. We publish a monthly podcast and video so people who can't attend the in-person event can still enjoy the readings. If you'd like to support the series, you can donate at kgbfantasticfiction.org/support. Anyway, on to the show.
Good evening. How is everyone doing tonight? We could do better than that. How is everyone doing tonight? That's a little bit better. I'll take it. Good evening. My name is Matt Kressel. I co-host the series with Ellen Datlow. This is Fantastic Fiction at KGB. Who here, raise your hand if it's your first time at this reading series. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. We love new people. We hope that you will continue to come to the series. We have a website, kgbfantasticfiction.org, or you could follow Ellen Datlow or myself, Matthew Kressel, on socials to find out about the readings. It is always free. There is never a cover charge. All we ask is that you buy a drink, hard or soft, and tip your bartender, Mary, who is working hard to keep you hydrated. Thank you, Mary. So, we have a podcast. If you can't make the series or you're not local and you're only here for a few hours, kgbfantasticfiction.org or search for Fantastic Fiction at KGB Podcast at your favorite pod site. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I have a book out this week. Thank you. Yes, may I? Space Trucker Jess. It is out this week from Fairwood Press, and I'm having a book launch party this Saturday at the Hidden Door, 314 Dean Street in Brooklyn. If you don't know that address, if you've been to the BSFW salons, it is the same location. It's called the Hidden Door. It is a great space. We're going to have giveaways. I'm giving away trucker hats and T-shirts, and Rajan Khanna is going to interview me, and afterwards we're going over to Three's Brewing for an after party. So it's going to be a fun afternoon. That's this Saturday, 2 p.m., 314 Dean Street. Hope you can make it. Enough about me. Our guests tonight are John Kessel and Caitlin Rozakis. Very excited to have them read for us. Our first reader tonight will be Caitlin. Now, before I introduce Caitlin, I would like to say that Caitlin has books for sale. So, may I hold them up? Caitlin does not want to carry them home. So, you must, I said there's no cover charge, but what I didn't say was that you are required to buy a book. You cannot leave unless you buy a book. No, I'm kidding. All right. But we do have books for sale. So we take a 15-minute break between the readings. You can come up, buy a book, get them signed. You can also, if you have books by John Kessel, you can also get them signed. Do you have anything for sale, John, with us?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Okay. But you could have John sign your face if you want to. Caitlin has the Grimoire Grammar School book for sale. Dreadful. Lovely book. And Thrilling Adventure Yarns from 2022. It's an anthology, so if you would like to buy a copy. And I will let Ellen do the upcoming readers, because she loves to do that, so I won't steal Ellen's thunder. By the way, next month, Ellen and I will be at Seattle WorldCon, so the marvelous Mercure de Rivera and the amazing Amy Goldschlager will be subbing for us, so... Don't be fooled if they cosplay as me and Ellen. That's not us. No, it'll be. I know we're in good hands here with the two of you. Our first reader tonight is Caitlin Rozakis. New York Times bestselling author Caitlin Rozakis writes fantasy with a satirical twist and a cozy heart. Her most recent novel is the Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teacher Association. Her previous book, Dreadful, but turned out not to be dreadful at all. Her contemporary romance novella, Leah's Perfect Christmas, written as Catherine Beck, was adopted as the Hallmark Channel original movie Leah's Perfect Gift. She lives in Jersey City with her husband and son. Please welcome Caitlin Rozakis.
Hi, folks. So I'm actually kind of hoping that most of you haven't read Grimoire, because that's what I'm reading from. Chapter 1. September 5th, 10:04 a.m. Thank you for joining Minder, the official Grimoire Grammar School notification system. These notifications will help you stay on top of school closings, event reminders, and other important information about your child's class. We look forward to a great year. Reply @StopAll to cancel. September 5th, 10:05 a.m. If you wish to receive updates via mental summons instead of text, please envision the continue glyph now. Maybe it was the bite-sized gingerbread man that waved merrily at her from the half-eaten tray of its fellows. Or maybe it was the impossibly elegant woman with the delicate gills at her neck. But as soon as Vivian arrived at the Grimoire Grammar School back-to-school picnic, she knew bringing the brownies had been a mistake. Daniel had teased her, both about making something so white bread American and about making it from scratch instead of using a box mix like a normal person. He'd voted to buy a box of Entenmann's chocolate chip cookies and call it a day. But Vivian was already feeling insecure, and she'd wanted to make a good impression. She thought brownies were the perfect compromise, down to earth enough not to be ostentatious, yet homemade with high-quality ingredients to show she made the effort. But just as one should not bring a knife to a gunfight, one should not bring brownies to a magic school picnic. "Oh," said the woman behind the table. Up close, her skin had the faintest touch of shimmer. Her voice held haunting resonances that Vivian would have happily listened to for hours. Brownies. How quaint. It didn't matter how gorgeous the voice. Vivian knew a slight when she heard one. Her cheeks warmed, but she soldiered on anyway. "Well, it wouldn't be a potluck without them, would it?" she said cheerily. "I'm Viv." The elegant woman left Vivian's hand hanging in the air. "I suppose you can put them over on the corner." Vivian lowered her hand, blushing harder. She edged over to the corner of shame and wedged her knockoff Tupperware where it wouldn't stand out too much. She'd just abandon it, she decided. She certainly wasn't going home with a full container under her arm, and as Daniel kept reminding her, it wasn't like their daughter could have chocolate anymore. Next to it was a plate of iridescent cupcakes that were literally glowing, and a container of what looked like raw meat carefully cut into hearts. The shape, not the muscle. Although, come to think of it, if someone had cut heart shapes out of cow hearts, she wasn't sure she would be able to tell. No one was going to notice the brownies. "Are those brownies?" Vivian's ears were hot now. She turned around, waiting for another condescending look. But the smiling white woman with the mass of brown curls peered around her, eyes lighting up. "They are! No one ever brings chocolate to these things. The werewolves always complain too much. I say, if your child is going to throw up if they eat chocolate, maybe if they throw up a couple times, they'll figure out they should stop eating it. You're very brave. I think I'm going to like you." Vivian had not meant to be brave. Crap, is it that much of a faux pas? I mean, I knew about the werewolves not eating chocolate. My daughter can't have it, but I thought as long as we stayed away from nuts and allium, it was allowed? Aria also couldn't have eggs, according to the last allergy test they'd been able to do before everything got turned upside down. But these weren't for her. Vivian had a vegan carob thingy in a baggie in her purse for Aria. It was also organic, fair trade, sweetened with applesauce instead of sugar, and tasted kind of cardboardy because apparently people who bought egg and chocolate-free desserts expected them to be penitential. But as she'd discovered the hard way with the first round of allergies, if she brought desserts Aria could eat to a potluck, no one else ate them, and she hadn't had time to make 2 batches of brownies. "Most people won't mind, but you won't win any friends of the militant crowd." The other mom's eyes twinkled. "Tell you what, you and I will disappear these, and no one need know about it. Pretty sure I can find them a home. I'm Moira, by the way." "Viv," she replied, a little overwhelmed. "New to the neighborhood, are you?" "Last week." It wasn't proving to be the friendliest of places. "What class are you in?" Mandrake room?" Vivian had gone to public school, where her classes had been called the teacher's name, the room number, or the grade level. She remembered some of her friends from before who had older children in Montessori schools laughing over classes named after plants or animals. She thought it was charming, if a little twee. She didn't think twee covered this. Really? You're a kindergarten parent? Moira lit up. My daughter Kara is in Mandrake, too. Really? Vivian echoed. Oh, thank God. No one had talked to her since they'd moved. And she started to believe that the little family was going to be total outcasts. Oh, this is perfect. Ah! Sorry, I've been attacked by a lamp. Thanks, Gordon. Sorry. Kara will be delighted. She's known most of the class since they were all born, and she'll be thrilled to have a new friend. Where's yours? Boy? Girl? Something else? Oh, girl. Aria. Her name's Aria, Vivian fumbled. She hadn't been this nervous since freshman year. Frightened, yes. Terrified, definitely. Heartbroken and lost, too much. But not nervous. Nervous was almost a relief. That the worst to be scared of was what other parents thought of her. She's over there with my husband. Daniel is my husband, I mean. Moira looked over where Daniel was standing near the playground, a surprisingly normal-looking assortment of twisty metal bars and platforms and plastic slides in primary colors. In the shadow of a school that looked less like the medieval castle Vivian had felt a magic school should resemble, and more like the gray-stone neo-Gothic of an elite American university with an endowment and a desperate wish to cosplay as Oxford. The sun caught on his raven hair and gently tanned skin, and Vivian had the familiar astonishment that someone so dashing could be hers. Aria was peering longingly at the other kids from behind his legs. She had Vivian's reddish-brown hair and heart-shaped face, but the same eyes she'd seen in photographs of Daniel's own father. So she's... Moira trailed off, fishing. A little boy with an Elmore guitar swung over his shoulder, beckoned to Aria. She shook her head and ducked farther behind Daniel's legs. Same questions every time. Quarter Japanese, yes. Okay, that's nice, Moira said. But, what I mean is you guys are... Oh, even better. Married? The Elmo guitar kid had wandered closer, leaning around to see Aria. Aria yelped and jumped back. And abruptly rippled, whining at the back of her throat. Her back arched and her knees cracked, and there was a weird shiver in the air around her, and suddenly, instead of a little girl, there was a reddish-brown wolf pup sitting in a puddle of shredded clothing. Oh, said Moira. That answers that. Going with the chocolate so you're not tempted to break your diet? And that was why they were here at Grimoire Grammar. Because the looks the other parents were giving Daniel were the same kind you'd give the parent of a kindergartner who had just wet themselves. Pity mixed with condemnation. Judgment and relief that the judgment was being rained down on someone other than them. But not horror, or screaming, or fainting, or throwing up, or calling animal control. All of which had happened before. Vivian felt somewhat inoculated to my kid would never, and there but the grace of God go I looks, as long as no one ever called her child demon spawn or ever tried to run her over with a truck again. But there was another misapprehension there. And as much as Vivian wanted the safety of being accepted in the community, it wasn't like she could keep the pretext up long. Better to nip this one in the bud. She said, dragging it out over her reluctance, I'm not... and neither is Daniel. Just Aria. Oh. That was what it took to finally dampen the ebullient Moira. Huh. It was nice to meet you, Vivian said mechanically. She should have known that it would be too much to ask to make a real mom friend. What did she have to offer anyone? She started to go help Daniel. Aria was cowering behind him once more, now with a literal tail between her legs. Tonight was a full moon, after all, and she seemed to have more trouble than usual turning back the day after a full moon. Let Dad take this one, Moira said, surprising her. Hun, you need a drink. Here? She asked, startled. I couldn't. I should. Elmo Guitar Boy had settled down on his haunches, holding out his hand like someone familiar with dogs. Aria peered around Daniel's legs and took a tentative sniff. The boy waited patiently, as the wolf cub shyly took a step toward him, and then another. See, she'll be fine. Evander's charming with animals. He had half the birds in the neighborhood following him around by the time he was 3. Come on, you need to hit the wine and cheese table, and maybe skip the cheese. Moira grabbed her arm and steered her around. Vivian managed to catch Daniel's eye from across milling fields of kids and their grown-ups. He nodded with his chin. He had this. He was the one with the backpack with the 2 changes of clothes, anyway. So your daughter's a shifter, Moira said, and left a little pause for Vivian to explain exactly how that had come about. She didn't. Moira continued as if nothing had happened. Well, you're in good company. We're Selkies, by the way. I mentioned Kara, my youngest. Ewan's my husband, and Kara's older brother Rory is finishing up middle school. I know, quite the gap, but what can I say? Time and tide wait for no man and all, but sometimes the tide catches up, if you know what I mean. Vivian had no idea what she meant, but she could tell in innuendo tone when she heard it. Selkies were what? Wereseals? Something like that? Let's see. Who else do we need to know? They're mostly mages, of course. There's always been a lot more of them than us. The Cunninghams are nice enough. Mother Ocean knows they've got their hands full with twins to begin with, and it looks like the girl's going to be a pyromancer. Moira indicated a black couple, the mother fruitlessly trying to remove something sticky from her fidgeting daughter's mouth, the father gesturing broadly as he talked to a slim redhead with very fair skin and curls piled just so. They stood under a dogwood tree blooming out of season, next to a flaming red sugar maple, both of which shaded the promised table covered with wine and semi-fancy cheese and olives and other things kids generally wouldn't touch. Cecily's a bit more prickly, tends to go on and on about lineage. She's from one of those old mage families, thinks we're all touch gauche. Don't let her get to you. Wonderful. Her mother would have been thrilled if she were still talking to her mother. All through her childhood, she'd had the importance of making friends with the right crowd drilled into her, the careful dance of favors granted and owed. She tried to leave all that behind, but then where had it gotten her? Maybe if she'd been a power player, she wouldn't have ended up a pariah when things went wrong for her family. But maybe things would be different here. Moira seemed nice enough. Vivian had just had to make a good impression in a town where she was, by definition, an outsider in a culture she couldn't hope to join, with nothing less than her daughter's entire future riding on her success. She swallowed, her mouth gone dry. Who's manning the dessert table, she ventured. Moira rolled her eyes. Oh, Radney. Speak of cold fish. Is she a siren? Yep. I was going to say model. Radney? Take directions from anyone? Oh, hell no. She's the one who tells the models what to do. Well, not directly. She has people for that. Runs some ad agency in the city, one of the big ones. Of course a siren would run an ad agency. It was probably restful, luring consumers to their doom instead of sailors. Less dead fish smell. I have lost my timer here. Sorry. I think we will stop there because I don't want to use up all of our time. Oh, wait, you want? Okay, I can keep going. Sorry. I always have a tendency to either talk too fast or too slow and then not have the time I practiced that at. Okay. Somehow, Vivian found herself with a plate of cheese in one hand and a clear plastic cup of cheap Chardonnay in the other, facing the age-old cocktail party dilemma of how to get cheese into one's mouth when the other hand is full of wine. She awkwardly balanced the little paper plate on the cup. The redhead, Cecily, raised one elegant eyebrow. Very deliberately, she made a tiny motion with her wrist, as if there were an invisible table immediately beneath her own cup. Then she released the cup to float, motionless, where she'd left it, selected a piece of cheese and a cracker from her own plate, popped it into her mouth, and retrieved the cup from its non-existent perch without ever breaking eye contact. Vivian gave up on balancing cheese and took a bigger gulp of wine than strictly necessary by polite society's rules. She herself found it completely necessary. Who was she kidding? She was never going to fit in with these people. I know changing the bylaws are a pain, but the increase in transparency would be worth it, the Cunningham dad was saying. Steve, you know that, and I know that, but a lot of people seem to think that Miss Genevieve, being so new to the role and all, it is more important to preserve a sense of stability. We wouldn't want to complicate things now. That would hardly be kind to her when she has so much to learn. Cecily switched her attention back to Steve Cunningham now that Vivian had been properly put in her place. Not that I would ever dream of saying something. You know I hate to raise a fuss. But don't you agree, Sasha? Sasha Cunningham looked like she wanted to talk about anything else, but the familiar way her head kept turning told Vivian she was too busy keeping half an eye on the twins to force a subject change. But with the logistics required, now that Banderbridge is no longer keeping things running smoothly, is it really the time? Cecily had the bit in her teeth and was off to the races. Vivian smiled and nodded through the continuation of what was clearly a tense but civil debate between the other parents clustered around the wine table. As far as she could follow, they were arguing about how often the parent advisory counselor treasurer needed to present the books to the association as opposed to the parent board, which was something else entirely. But she recognized the name of Miss Genevieve, the headmistress, and not Banderbridge, who seemed to have been the former headmaster. She wasn't sure why people would have preferred the latter to the former. Miss Genevieve had seemed like the very image of an efficient administrator to her. Maybe it was just resistance to change? This didn't seem to be the kind of place that liked change very much. They'd bemoaned other departures over the summer, some of the kids who had graduated and families who had moved, regardless of the parents' positions on team Give Ms. Genevieve a Chance or team Banbridge Can Never Be Replaced. It seemed everyone could agree that they were relieved to no longer have to deal with one of the previous parent advisory council members, although no one wanted to talk about exactly why. Vivian nodded and drank probably too much wine because she wasn't on team anybody. Fear that it was going to hurt Aria's social standing was sending her anxiety into overdrive. But then, it's all for the good of the children, Cecily said for at least the third time. Vivian wondered whether she ought to make bingo cards. Steve would play, she guessed. Sasha probably wouldn't because it would require listening too closely to Cecily, but she'd probably be willing to bet on the outcome if her husband played a card on her behalf. Was there some way to get caught up without reminding everyone of how very much she didn't belong here? Or at least show she was willing to learn? Most of the parents here seemed to be human mages. The cryptid community was small, she'd been told, and apparently the number of non-humans capable of procreating with any regularity was smaller still. Vampires didn't have kindergarteners. But the casual use of small magic she saw, a garden outline sketched in the air with colored light, a spilled ice cream resuscitated from the grass to fall upwards back into its cup, made her acutely aware of how very mundane she might be considered even by the non-cryptids. Moira the Selkie felt more relatable. And with Broomhilda's graduating, she'll be leaving a parent advisory council too, and while it looks like I'm going to be pressured into being president and we've lined up a volunteer to take my old spot as secretary, I just don't know how we'll fill the vacancy for treasurer, Cecily was saying. I could do it, Vivian blurted. Cecily raised her eyebrow again. There was no way Vivian believed that anyone was pressuring Cecily into taking the president position other than Cecily herself. I was an accountant before Aria, she said, hating how defensive she sounded. I was going to go back until... Anyway, I've got the time. I'd love to help. It's a very important position, Cecily began, and an extremely demanding responsibility. Excuse me, Vivian cut her off. She was willing to be talked down to over baking and not understanding the social mores of a community she'd unwillingly joined and her own inability to keep her daughter from shredding her clothes in public, but not about accounting. I was a senior management on an audit team from one of the biggest firms in the world. I think I can manage the PTA funds. Parent Advisory Council, not PTA. The temperature plunged. Vivian was pretty sure it was not her imagination, or would not have been surprised to see literal frost on the grass stems. It's a PTA, Cecily, Moira butted in, deftly refilling Vivian's cup, and I think it's a great idea. She gestured the wine bottle in Cecily's direction, but the maid swiveled the hand holding the cup to cover it from refilling. Go for it, Steve chimed in. We could always use a little more blood. Excuse me, folks, I'm afraid I have to steal my wife back. Vivian nearly spilled her wine. Daniel had come up from behind her without her noticing. Nice to meet you all. Never mind that he hadn't met any of them. He steered her away from the group, her elbow in her iron grip. What's wrong? She whispered. I was in the middle of something. What's wrong is that I can't find Aria. That's from the Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teacher Association, which came out at the end of May and is available most fine places books are sold, except for the Strand, which doesn't stock me for some reason. Boo. Boo.
Anyway, thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break and come and buy her books and have a drink, and we'll see you in a little while. Everybody, we're going to start the second half of the show. So everyone sit. Hello, everybody. Sit down. Hello. Shh. Okay. All right. The type is smaller than usual. Let's see if I can read it. Okay. First of all, we have a bunch of excellent readers coming up over the next 6 months. We have, so far, August 13th, we have Deborah Every and Cassandra Koa, which is on, you'll all hear them, and unfortunately Matt and I will not. We'll have to listen to the audio. We're both going to be in Seattle. September 10th, Shiva Kumar and Fran Wild. October 8th, Liana Renee Heber and Shweta Thakrar. November 12th, Mary Robinette Cole and Lara Elena Donnelly. December 10th, Martin Cahill and Daniel Brown. And January 14th, Rachel Harrison and Robert Atone. So we have an interesting lineup for the rest of the year through January. And now we have John Kessel, who's up from Raleigh, North Carolina, South Carolina? I get mixed up. One of the Carolinas. Okay. John Kessel's most recent books are the collection The Presidential Papers in PM Press's Outspoken Authors Series and the career retrospective The Dark Ride, the best short fiction of John Kessel from Subterranean Press. His novels include The Moon and the Other, and Pride and Prometheus. His fiction has twice received the Nebula Award, in addition to the Theodore Sturgeon, Locus, Shirley Jackson, and otherwise awards. At NC State University, he taught fiction writing and co-founded the Sycamore Hill Writers Workshop, which is still ongoing. Are you still teaching?
I am not teaching, no.
He's retired, lucky him. And hopefully he's writing more. He lives in Raleigh with his obligatory 3 cats and the absolutely non-obligatory spouse, author Therese Anne Fowler. Please welcome John Kessel.
Oh, let me stop this. So, thank you. Thank you, Ellen and Matt and KGB Bar for having me back here. It's been a long time since I've been here. It's always a cool place to read. Maybe the coolest place. Who knows? So I'm going to read a couple of scenes from a novella that I wrote that's coming out in Asimov's September-October issue, which is their fantasy issue. And so this is I guess it's sort of a haunted house story. But it's also a historical, and most of the characters in this story are real people, and a lot of the things that happened here really happened. And let's see, I guess I'll just begin. So it's called The Ghost. At the end of December 1899, H.G. Wells and his wife Jane were invited to an end-of-the-century party thrown by the celebrated American writer Stephen Crane, who had been living in England for 2 years. Crane asked Wells and a host of others to join him in writing a play that would be performed for the townspeople of Brede in Sussex, near the manor house he was renting with his wife Cora. Crane was 28 years old. 6 months later, he would be dead. The play was titled The Ghost. Tuesday, December 26th. The coach, laden with their luggage and extra bedding, lurched down the country lane west of Rye. Wells's breath steamed the freezing air of the cab. Jane, bundled up in her overcoat, fur hat, and the lap robe, stared out over the dead gray meadows. Without turning, she said, "I wish that Cora had sent me the music for the play. I haven't had any time to practice." "There are many details to preparing a 4-day house party," Wells said. "It must have slipped her mind." "Perhaps. She heard you play last summer. She has a high regard for your abilities." Jane at last turned to him. "As it seems you have of hers." Wells leaned back. "She's an accomplished woman, like you, Miss Bitts. Together you shall manage this swimmingly." They crested a final slope and spied Brede Place in the distance. Surrounded by a 100-acre park, the manor house leaned into the side of a hill. At some distance from it, a man rode a big white horse across the winter fields. The coach turned into the drive that curved toward the house and rattled to a stop before the entrance. The butler came out and opened the door of the coach, while Mac, the white-bearded caretaker, the Cranes had nicknamed him Tolstoy, shambled from the stables to get their luggage. Cora Crane waited on the steps of the mansion, accompanied by 3 unruly dogs. "H.G.," she said. "Jane, welcome. You're the first to arrive." "Good," Wells said, wary of the dogs bounding around their ankles. "We shall begin the celebration early." "Now that you're here, it's already begun. Sponge, Flannel, Ruby, behave yourselves." The dogs ignored her. Cora looked at Wells in the eye. Her own were a startling blue. "I'm afraid that Sponge may outbark you." When pressed, H.G. can outbark anyone, said Jane. Standing beside Cora, Jane looked the prettier of the two, but delicate in comparison. Cora gazed out at the approaching horseman. Here comes the Baron. As Stephen rode onto the drive, he reined the horse from a canter to a walk. He pulled up beside the coach, his imitation of a country squire spoiled by the fact that he was riding a carriage horse. The dogs yelped around its legs, and Stephen dismounted. Our tale begins, he said. He coughed once into his gloved fist, a sharp-faced young man with drooping mustaches, wearing a fine riding jacket, his boots and breeches splattered with mud. Down, Sponge. He shook his head at the dogs. Tolstoy, he said to the old man, wrestling down their bags, take care of these dogs. Coming out of the cold, Cora said. Two battered swords and a ragged Spanish flag, souvenirs of the Spanish-American War, hung in the entry. Let's see here. It opened into the oak-paneled hall that ran the length of the house. The room, draped with ropes of holly, was furnished with comfortable couches and chairs, little tables with lamps, potted plants, and books. 8 tall, mullioned windows ran across the far end, and a fire blazed in the great hearth. Wells and Jane stood before the fire, chatting with Cora and Stephen while Tolstoy carried in their bags. Wells was surprised by how tired Stephen looked. Though he'd always been thin, he was now almost skeletal. His light brown hair lay flat on his head, and his jacket seemed a size too large. As soon as Stephen had removed his gloves, he pulled a cigarette from a box on an end table and lit it with a taper. He blew out the tobacco smoke in a long sigh. How good it is to see you both. In contrast to Stephen, Cora was the picture of vitality. Her fine skin flushed and eyes alert below her mane of thick gold hair, which against custom she wore down. She was dressed in a long forest green skirt and a pale green blouse. I'm going to skip ahead. H.G. and Jane's marriage is strained. Their sex life is not doing too well. You know, we cannot keep it up all the time. It's a problem. So not only that, they're given a room in the mansion, and at night the door to their room keeps opening of its own accord. So I'll say a little about the place. The manor had been in the Fruin family for 200 years, but no one, aside from a caretaker, had lived in it for decades. Morton Fruin might be Lord Randolph Churchill's brother-in-law, but his failed attempts to extend his fortunes had earned him the nickname Mortal Ruin. A year ago, he'd rented the deserted manor to the Cranes, who in return promised to make it habitable. They'd furnished the public rooms with second-hand pieces in serviceable condition. Those rooms that could not pass muster were shut up. The house had no modern conveniences, no gas or running water, only a wood stove and a single indoor toilet. But the Christmas decorations lent it an aura of merry old England, and throughout the day, delivery boys from the town arrived with meat, produce, eggs, bread, cases of wine, and kegs of beer. About dusk, a horse-drawn omnibus arrived from Hastings Station, bearing new guests. Let's skip ahead. By evening, most of the people who would perform in the play had arrived. After supper, they gathered in the hall, and Cora brought out a stack of folios. Stephen announced, Thursday night, in the Breed Schoolhouse, we will enact our play for the townspeople. Here are the scripts. Cora distributed them. The Ghost, written by Mr. Henry James, Mr. Robert Barr, Mr. George Gissing, Mr. Ryder Haggard, Mr. Joseph Conrad, Mr. H.B. Marriott Watson, Mr. H.G. Wells, Mr. Edwin Pugh, Mr. A.E.W. Mason, and Mr. Stephen Crane. Here it is, the playbill from that play in 1899 with all those names on it. So, please work on learning your lines, Stephen said. Our rehearsal will begin tomorrow morning at 11 here in the ballroom. Rosamond Marriott Watson said, Henry tells me your play is about the ghost that haunts this manor. One of them, yes. A house built in 1359 has had time to produce a lot of ghosts. You may have noticed that after supper, most of the servants left. The ghosts are why they don't like sleeping here. Yet, we're supposed to sleep? Asked Sylvia Bowen. Don't worry, Sylvia, said Edith. My room is the worst, where they used to do the hangings. It has 3 doors that open one after the other in the middle of the night. How fortunate our room has but 1 door, said Jane. You're lucky to have a room at all, said Ethel Bowen. We must sleep in a dormitory. One needs to be careful where one sleeps in an old house, Rosamond said. Henry wrote a story about that, the stone chamber. She looked about the room and whispered, vampires. Our play, said Stephen, is about Sir Goddard Oxenbridge, the ogre of Breed Place. He was fond of eating children and could not be killed by metal. One night, a pack of his intended victims got him drunk and sawed him in half with a wooden saw. There may be bits of him still lying about here. And these other ghosts? Asked Pugh. Well, there's Father John, a Catholic priest, said to have been murdered in the chapel. Some claim he was not a priest, but a pirate. In the 1600s, smugglers used Breed Place as a haven. The tunnels under the house go all the way to the river. We must explore them, said Mason. They say Father John is missing his right hand, replaced by a hook, said Cora. Stephen held up his own hand. The Gospel of St. Matthew says, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand is doing. How better to keep your left hand ignorant than to cut off your right. Any others? Well, in the 17th century, the maid, Martha, hanged herself from that oak out there. The story goes that the son of the master dishonored her. Vernal, our cook, says she's glimpsed her hanging there under the full moon. We'll watch for her tonight, someone said. Moon won't be full for 2 weeks, said Mark Barr, a mathematician. Deuced poor timing, said Mason. Good Lord, Stephen, said Pugh. How many ghosts are there? Well, Heather speaks of a headless man wearing a ruff, but I think that one's a myth. We may need to add a few beds to the dormitory, said Pugh, to accommodate them all. While people paged through their scripts, Cora approached Jane. Here's the sheet music for the songs, she told her, handing Jane a portfolio. They're all from the Mikado. I assume you're familiar with them already. Of course, the lyrics have been altered to our purposes. I shall need to practice, Jane said. Cora gestured at the piano. It's been gathering dust for months. It will be good to hear someone play. Jane leafed through the music. Cora could not have put Jane's nerves more on end had she done it on purpose. Cora lowered her voice to a whisper. I'm so sorry to put you in this situation, Jane. The songs were one of the last things we decided upon. Don't be faint of heart. I know how fine a performer you are. You deserve favorable attention, and you shall earn it. But I see Vernal in the doorway looking agitated, if you'll excuse me. Later, as they went up to their room, Wells touched Jane on the arm and said softly, You'll be fine, Miss Bitts, I promise. Promises are easy, she said. It won't be you at the keyboard. So over the next couple days, up to 40 people end up here, many writers and other actors and actresses. And H.G. is caught flirting with Cora, to whom he's very attracted. And in response, Jane tells him a rumor that Stephen and Cora aren't really married. And so H.G.'s wondering about this. Where are we here? Let's see how I stand here. Okay. So it was past midnight. Those who were not prowling about the house in search of ghosts had retired, grumbling about being separated from their spouses by the dormitory sleeping arrangements, or flirting with each other about the same. Jane's report cast a new light on any number of things Wells had noticed about the Cranes. Such situations were not unheard of in the literary world. Harold Frederick had maintained 2 separate families until his sudden death a year earlier, and many a tea time had been enlivened by talk of how Rosamond had destroyed both her marriage and her career when Marriott Watson got her with child 4 years ago. Wells found Stephen in the dining room, teaching a couple of the men how to play poker, showing more enthusiasm than he had the entire evening. Even if he dared to ask Stephen about Jane's gossip, this was not the time. Instead, Wells found himself sitting at the table with Mason and Pugh while Stephen dealt the cards and explained the play, which seemed to involve a great deal of betting. Pugh was simultaneously worried about losing money and desperate to win, while Mason and Wells did not pay much attention. It turned out that Mason knew Wells's old school friend, the playwright Sidney Bowkett, and they fell to trading anecdotes about him instead of concentrating on the cards. And at the premiere, he did not even acknowledge the playwright, Mason said. Didn't he write the play himself? So he claimed. I told him. Does two pair beat three of a kind, or is it the reverse? Pugh asked. Three of a kind beats two pair, said Stephen. He drew on his cigarette. The tip glowed in the candlelight. The corners of the room were dark enough to invite any imaginings. I will raise, said Pugh, looking toward Stephen for approval. He held his cards in a death grip. So I told him, Mason began again. Stephen interrupted. Mason, are you in? In what? If you want to keep playing this hand, you need to ante up. Ante up? Put money into the pot? The pot? Stephen gestured at the pile of coins at the center of the table. Mason looked at his cards, and then threw in a shilling. It'll cost you 2 shillings at this point, Stephen said. Mason threw in another. So I told him, Mason said to Wells, that if he persisted in chasing after the ingenue instead of fixing the third act, he would lose both his investment and the girl. Wells chuckled. If I know Bowkett, that didn't inhibit him. Stephen said, Wells, are you in or... Never mind. He sighed and flipped his cards into the center of the table. In any decent saloon in America, you gentlemen would be shot for talking like this at poker. I'm sorry, Stephen, Mason said. Speaking of theater, I guess I'd better go learn my lines. I'm the ghost, after all. Pugh's dreams of big winnings shattered. He gathered up his coins and left with Mason. Wells lingered. The way Stephen had given up on the poker game showed not just disappointment, but disgust. Stephen poured himself another inch of whiskey, gave it a shot from the siphon, and lit a new cigarette. He held up the decanter and lifted an eyebrow at Wells. No, thank you, said Wells. They sat silently for a while. Wells did not think he could in any gracious way bring up the question of whether Stephen and Cora were married. I'm reading your new novel in the Strand, Stephen said. Love and Mr. Who's this? Mr. Lewisham, Wells said. Right, Lewisham. No Martians or invisible men, unless they turn up in some later episode. No, said Wells, I'm trying to leave such wonders behind. Stephen's gesture with the cigarette was somehow sardonic. That's a risk, going to a place the editors don't expect. More than once I've lost money by changing direction. They think they know what they want. You have a reputation for not caring what people think. That was then, Stephen said. McClure owes me $1,000 that he won't pay. If I ever finish this fool Irish romance, maybe Pinker can get me some real money. You're better than Irish romances, Stephen, and I'm more than the fellow who writes about Martians. Oh, there's a canyon between the Martians and Mr. Lewisham, Wells. Be careful you don't fall into it. What Stephen said struck a nerve. Wells had a great deal riding on Lewisham. If it failed, he would be forced back to scientific romances. I worked harder on this book than any before, Wells said. Even James might respect it. James is no better off, Stephen said. We're all outsiders. James is the aesthete. I'm the cowboy. Conrad's the penniless Polish count. And you're the time traveler. Not the time traveler. I'm a Morlock, rising. A threat? All of us, Wells said. A ring of conspirators plotting against British letters. No plots for me, Stephen said, or rather, nothing but plot. I can't afford to be a threat anymore. Stephen coughed roughly, and it turned into a wheeze. You look exhausted, Stephen. The damn Cuban fever. I think I'm over it, and then it comes back. Does Cora realize how unwell you feel? Stephen flicked his cigarette butt into the fireplace 6 feet away. He looked Wells dead in the eyes. You know what I like about your stories, H.G., is that the people are moved by forces over which they have no control. We both think we're going to be annihilated. We just disagree about what's going to annihilate us. Must we be annihilated? Eventually, yes. Stephen drew another cigarette from the box on the table. You need to sleep, Stephen. And I will. Right now, however, I need to smoke one more cigarette. Wells did not think talk of scandal would relieve talk of annihilation. I'll say good night, then. Good night. Stephen struck a match and put it to the end of his cigarette. If you don't mind, I'll do a little bit more. Just It's crucial right now. In the great hall, the fire had burned down to coals. If the ghost hunters were still abroad, they hunted in secret places. The house was eerily silent. Wells listened to his own shoes echo on the floor as he moved to the stairs. Above him, the staircase was lit halfway up by a candle in a wall sconce between the windows of the landing. The banister was frigid beneath his touch. Outside the window, a solitary owl hooted. When he turned at the landing, there was Cora Crane. She didn't move. She stood as if in a trance, a step above him, smiling slightly. The candlelight glinted in her eyes and shone on her pre-Raphaelite hair. In the wake of what Jane had told him, he felt unnerved. "Excuse me," he said, voice catching. "I didn't know you were still awake." "I've been waiting for you," she said. "Well, here I am." "Yes," she said. She leaned closer, her face inches away. He could not move. She pressed her slightly parted, warm lips against his. He let his linger on hers. He wanted very much to embrace her. He drew back. "Someone may see us." "And if they should?" "I don't imagine that Stephen would like it." "Would Jane?" "No, she wouldn't like it either." Cora touched his mustache with the tip of her finger. "You men, why do you flirt with me if you don't want my kiss?" "Well, I haven't said I don't want it." Cora stepped down and past him. "No, you haven't. Look for me in the chapel." When he turned to watch her descend, she was gone. Nothing more than a trace of her perfume lingered. The owl hooted again. One last bit here. So this house has no plumbing. Has one bathroom that the women are using. So the men have to go out to a privy outside. And there's a snowstorm overnight, and in the morning, Wells goes out there where a bunch of men are waiting in line, and then he's coming back to the house. On his way back toward the house, he found Tolstoy sitting on a stool just inside the doorway of the stables. To Wells's surprise, he was working on a bicycle. It was a good safety bicycle, forest green, almost new. Beside him on the straw sat a mug of ale. Tolstoy, his impressive white beard a tangle, sat looking at the bicycle, holding an oil can limply in his hands, as if he'd lost his purpose. "This is a surprise," Wells said. "Does someone here ride a bicycle?" "No, sir," Tolstoy said. "Mrs. Crane bought it thinking Mr. Crane might take to it, but he won't go near it." He let out a sigh. "I don't know who'll care for it after I leave." A look of deep distress settled onto the old man's face. His eyes were bloodshot. Without thinking, Wells said, "Whatever's the matter?" "I dasn't work here no more." Tolstoy's voice was hollow. "You need a rest?" "No rest to be had here, sir." "The Cranes work you too hard?" Wells had heard quite the opposite. "Not half. 'Tisn't that." Wells glanced toward the privy and toward the house. No one was in the range of their voices. "Well, what is it, then?" Tolstoy looked at the ground. Some places, bloody deeds done there spoils them. Mr. and Mrs. Crane is kindly, but not to others have dwelt on this manner. Centuries of men and women wanton and taken. It's the appetites." "Appetites?" "The rich ones, the fair ones. They wants and they gets." "Well, don't you want things?" "Well, I want a pint of ale and a leg of lamb. That's no crime. But the bad ones, they run over to others to feed their appetites. Cruel and selfish, never punished. In this very house, for centuries." "Do you believe in the ghosts they speak of?" "Well, I slept here every night for 20 years. Ain't spied no ghosts. But who knows what bad thing was done in that very spot where ye stand 500 years ago. It's soaked into the walls. Since the Cranes opened up the house, I seen things going wrong. This party's just their latest mistake. Who are all these people? Do they know any of them, really? How long they known them?" Wells had known Crane for less than a year. "And the money it's costing them. They's not really the people they make themselves out to be, are they?" "What do you mean?" "All high-toned and proper. You don't have to be around long to know that both of them seen things on what you'd call the low side in life, sir. They're good people with some weakness. But any weakness you have, this house'll make it worse. Anything you think you want, You'll come to think you deserve it. You'll even think you might get it, but never you will. Your life will go bad in some ways. It won't happen. And the things you already had, they'll get taken too. Come now, these guests are good people, most of them, Wells thought. It's a party. A poisoned well tastes fine at first. Drink from it every day, you die. Thank you. So that'll be in Asimov. This is one of a series of stories I'm writing that all take place between 1900 and 1910, and have a lot of famous people involved in them, and some bad things happen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That was amazing. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you to all of you for coming. That is our reading for tonight, but we hope you will join us next month, second Wednesday of every month. So stick around, have a drink, and we'll see you next month. So thank you. And buy books.
You have been listening to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Check out our website at kgbfantasticfiction.org and click on support if you'd like to help keep the series going. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening, and see you next month.